Alright, welcome back everyone to part 2 of the Minecraft Speedrun World Record Explained. Today we're taking a look at the ranked world record by Infume of 5 minutes and 47 seconds. Now this is part 2 in the series, but I'll make sure that watching part 1 is not a requirement. However, if you ever feel like the explanations weren't quite enough for you or you're confused on some parts, I would suggest checking out part 1 because I explain a lot more things in a lot more detail in that video. Alright, now let's load up Infume's world and explain what's going on. Wait, I don't actually have Infume's world. Yo Infume, did you ever release your ranked world record seed? What the hell? Why is it exclamation point girlfriend, bro? Alright, quickly before the video starts, let me explain the difference between this world record and the other one we tackled in part 1. You might notice that it's about a minute faster, and it is not regarded as the #1 speedrun on speedrun.com. But instead it is the ranked world record. Minecraft Speedrunning Ranked, or short MCSR Ranked, is a mod for Minecraft 1.16 in which you can speedrun against other people on the same world at the same time with the same luck. The person who completes the seed faster wins the game and gains elo, which means you can rise through the ranks and it creates an inherent competitiveness. Now to ensure that the players of Ranked don't have a terrible experience by playing a really bad world which takes forever to speedrun through, the ranked seeds are actually what's called filtered. Now a filtered seed is a concept which you can read about on this page, but the basic gist of it is, in the overworld there will always be a structure close by which has at least some iron, some food, things you need for the speedrun. For example, if you roll a village seed, it will always spawn within 7 chunks and have at least 7 iron. Similarly, there are some other overworld types, but the basic gist of it is, as I already said, to have guaranteed materials in the overworld to make the speedrun more consistent. Similarly in the nether, there will always be a close by bastion remnant and a close by fortress. Now, to create such seeds, the ranked algorithm filters for overworlds and nethers that meet these criteria and then combines them into a so-called ranked seed. And that's exactly how it differs from a random seed run. A random seed is actually completely random. The world can be absolutely terrible, there can be no fortress in 1,000 blocks, but that's exactly why the ranked world record is slightly faster and is also not officially recognized as the Minecraft random seed world record, because the seed will always be at least decent. Now with all of that talk out of the way, let's start watching the video. Now before I click play, I suggest you minimize the video and hit the like and subscribe button on Infume's channel.
Oh my god.
Spawning into the seed, we use a similar strategy in Loki's run to locate a chest that is around us. It is to use the pie chart. For this, we will have to be using the game renderer level entities pie chart. It looks something like this. And if you check the different sectors, you can see that there is a block entity sector, which is the orange part. Now basically what he does is he checks when this orange part gets larger, which means we have loaded in a block entity. And block entities are blocks like chests or spawners. So basically we're scanning for a chest here. Now, if we take a look at the pie chart and just move around our mouse, you can see it got larger here. So now on the right side of our screen border we have loaded in a chest. Just to confirm, let's do it from the other side as well. And there we go, it got larger again. Which means the chest is somewhere in this general vicinity. Over here he rescans again before he sees that there is a ruined portal right here. Now this scanning is not required in this case, but most of the time this will be a buried treasure seed and he doesn't actually know which seed type it is yet. So he was just scanning for a chest and then it turned out to be a ruined portal. And inside that ruined portal there's a very special item. A looting 3 sword. A looting 3 sword is the item that saves the most consistent time in top level play. Almost all fastest ranked speedruns were done using a ruined portal seed with a looting 2 or 3 sword. Now there are some other interesting things in this chest. Besides the looting 3 sword we have some iron nuggets, golden boots, flint and steel, and 2 obsidian. Now these 2 obsidian, he already knows, will allow us to enter the nether right up here, saving us from having to build the portal underwater and losing some time. This is why ruined portal seeds are so great. because you immediately get a flint and steel, gold armor, some iron, a looting sword sometimes, it's pretty rare but it does happen relatively often, and some obsidian to enter the nether. Let's keep watching.
Oh my god.
There's three main things we want to get in the overworld before entering the nether. Number 1, food. By lighting an animal on fire, before killing it with the looting sword, we can get a lot of food very quickly. As you can see, we got 3 pork chop with 1 gold. The second thing we need is an iron pickaxe. Now that is essential to Minecraft speedrun, because it allows you to break 1 block, gold blocks. Now we can break this one in the overworld, and we will do that in just a second. But the main part of it is breaking gold blocks inside the bastion to trade with piglins. In addition to the iron pickaxe, the last thing we want from the overworld is some blocks to tower around in the nether, because the terrain does not always allow us to easily enter a bastion. So basically what he does is he crafts an iron pickaxe, breaks the gold block, and from the gold block we make a gold axe to get wood. And with enough blocks we can enter the nether. Upon entering the nether, we are greeted by a bastion. This is a housing bastion, which is universally approved by every speedrunner, because it's very fast and also very consistent. With the portal I've generated down here, most speedrunners would have taken the route through the bottom part of the bastion and broke the gold blocks down there. But since our portal generated over here and we have a lot of blocks, Infume can easily bridge up to the top part of the housing and then play top-down housing, which just means we go from the top rampart, lure a lot of pigs down, and then trade at the bottom. And one thing we also saw is that he loots these chests very quickly. Here's a quick recap on how offhand looting works. It's basically, you click the hotkey for your offhand, which brings an item into your offhand. Then you click that empty slot, bring the item back, and click the item again. Now, if we do this all very quickly, it will loot every single one of these items at once. Let's keep watching. Changing the difficulty determines how aggressive piglins will chase us. Right now I'm on the difficulty easy, and as you can see, this guy definitely is mad at me, but he is not chasing me. As soon as I switch the difficulty to hard though, he will jump down and attack me, being much more aggressive. That is because on easy difficulty piglins will not want to fall more than 5 blocks, while on hard difficulty, well, you just saw it. So toggling to hard difficulty basically allows us to get more pigs. His bastion route goes as follows. Up here, we want to anger a bunch of piglins to lead them downwards and trade with them, as I already mentioned. Now he does this by punching them and then running quickly down the stairs. The housing bastion will always spawn in the same way, so this is very consistent and it has been practiced by almost every runner. Now over here he opens up some blocks, which will just allow excess piglins that are stuck in here to also get down, because you want the most amount of piglins to trade with to make it as fast as possible. Then he goes down here into this crevice and blocks it off. And you might be thinking, why do we block off the pigs when we want them to actually come down to trade? Well, simply put, we don't want them to get in here, but instead we want them to walk around like this and get down to the gold like that. Plus, in this little crevice right here, there is some backup gold blocks. Just to recap, this is the items he's always looking for in the bastion. First of all, we want 20 obsidian to build 2 portals, and I will show you what those do in just a second. Then we want all of these items, which is string to make beds, and crying obsidian as well as glowstone dust to make respawn anchors for explosives. These will be used to kill the ender dragon quickly. Next, we also need ender pearls, preferably a lot of them, because they're first of all a great movement item, and second of all, they allow us to enter the end and beat the dragon. Next, we will want some blocks to move around in the nether and pillar around, but these are basically always guaranteed, so he doesn't need to worry about those. And the last thing we need is fire resistance potions. When killing blazes, if you have a fire resistance potion on, blazes do no damage except in melee combat. So it basically makes them a non-issue. So that is why we want some fire resistance as well. And it's also the main reason why the bastion is always played first instead of fortress first, because it's just a lot easier to fight blazes with fire resistance and all the items we have from the bastion. Let me show you which gold blocks he gets for this. First of all, if we break up here, there will be 1 gold block. And then back in that crevice, there will be 2 more. Now if we jump down here, below this floor, scattered all around, there will be even more gold blocks. And we basically want to mine all of these and trade them with piglins for the items I mentioned before. So let's keep watching.
Shit.
Now, one thing you might not have noticed when he was digging down here is he was actually finding the fortress while he was mining the gold. Now, how does that work? Let me explain. It has to do with the pie chart again. In this case, it is the pie chart tick, level, entities, block entities. Now, if we take a look at the pie chart, we can see that there is a blue sector with mob spawner, which means inside our render distance, there is a mob spawner loaded. Now, this could mean 2 things. Either there is a treasure bastion, which is a specific type of bastion with a mob spawner in our near vicinity, or the blaze spawner, aka the fortress, is near us. In ranked, it'll be the fortress most of the time, or pretty much all of the time. So we know that there is a fortress in our render distance, but how do we know which way it is and where it is? What we can do is we can do the so-called pie ray. Now, pie raying has to do with loading and unloading the spawner and checking our pie chart. But first of all, let's lower our render distance all the way to 2 chunks. Now if we refresh the pie chart, we no longer see a mob spawner, which means at this point it is not in our render chunks. Now if we slowly increase the render distance, at some point, in this case after 13 chunks, we will see the mob spawner on the pie chart. So this already gives us a general estimate of the distance. We know that in 13 chunks distance there will be a fortress, but we don't know in which direction. Now to find out the direction, we can do another trick. First of all, we have to clear off the mob spawner sector again. For that, we lower our render distance by 4 chunks and then refresh the pie chart. And with that it is unloaded. Now the basic trick is to go 1 below the render distance that the fortress is on. If you remember, right now it was after 13 chunks. So basically we were going to go up to 12. Now there is still no mob spawner loaded, but that is exactly what we want. Now in whichever direction we go, if it loads, we know that the fortress will be in that general direction. So that is basically what we're doing using the pie chart. So first of all, let's walk north. Nothing. Let's try east. Nope. Let's try south. No. But if we walk into the north direction, we will see that the mob spawner suddenly appears. Therefore we can conclude the fortress is north. Now this is a great indicator of top level play. While mining for the gold, he does the distance check for the fortress. By lowering and increasing his render distance, he finds out that from his position it is 10 chunks away. Now he doesn't know which direction it is, and it was also incredibly fast, so you might not have caught it entirely. But basically what he did is he lowered his render distance and increased it to find out how far away the fortress is. And now we're just waiting on trades to get all the items I mentioned before. And you might not have caught it in that split second, but if we go back, it's kind of blocked by his face cam. But he has the 20 obsidian mentioned. He has quite a bit of string and glowstone powder, which will allow him to kill the ender dragon. And he also has a lot of ender pearls, as well as blocks and fire resistance. So incredibly quickly he has got all the items. And this is why the housing bastion is valued by a lot of speedrunners, because it's very quick and incredibly consistent. Now here's where he finds out in which direction the fortress is. Because as I already told you, he has not done that yet. I'll slow it down for you. So he mines out this way because this is the easiest direction to check. And first try you can see a small blue sector appearing on his pie chart, which means it is in fact in the west direction. Now this was completely arbitrary. He could have checked any of the other directions at first, but he randomly ended up on west and it was west. So he already knows that the fortress is somewhere this direction. Now with the aforementioned distance check and this direction check, we now know that the fortress is 10 chunks in the west direction. But we don't know exactly where it is. So the next goal is to find the fortress. Here is how Infume finds the fortress. First of all, he pearls up here to basically check that direction. And after not seeing anything up here, he uses the next trick, the widescreen macro. Now the widescreen macro allows you to see further through the nether fog. For example, if I look this way, or even turn my camera, I can barely see a red forest. However, if I press F4, which makes my game really short but also wide, then I can see further through the fog and I can see that there's a bastion back there and some red trees. Again, if I don't have this view, I don't see anything there. And that is what speedrunners use to check for the fortress. Now if we do this up here, which is where he did it, and we scan around, we can now see on the right side that the fortress is actually over there. It's unfortunately blocked by his face cam, but he does see it and pearls over. One more thing he does before entering the fortress is to lower his render distance to about 5 chunks. A lower render distance in the fortress will allow more blazes to spawn randomly, like these ones for example. Obviously here at the spawner, blazes will always spawn, but on these bridges, if they spawn randomly, with a looting sword we can play a very fast fortress, and that is exactly what he does here. By the way, if you want me to upload a tutorial, for example on how to set up the widescreen macro or the eye measuring script for Jingle, then make sure to let me know in the comments, and I'll get to it, because I really want to complete my Minecraft speedrunning tutorial series. Now let's keep watching. And he's done with the fortress. After just 3 blaze kills, he has already got all 7 rods, and he can build his portal right here. Now this is just because of the looting sword. If you remember what I said a couple of minutes ago, is that the looting sword saves time in a lot of splits. The fortress is the most notable one. Usually for 6 rods, which is the amount you need to leave the nether, you would have to kill about 12 blazes, since it's a 50% chance for a blaze to drop a rod upon its death. However, with looting, that amount is increased significantly, and a blaze, one singular blaze, can drop up to 4 rods. So Infume has to kill a fourth of the blazes that he would normally have to kill if he has looting 3. So it just saves a lot of time. And there we go, he already knows 100% chance where the stronghold is and the exact coordinates of it. If you want a little bit more of an in-depth explanation, I would again link you to part 1, but I'll explain the basic premise here. Modern speedrunners use a tool called Ninja Brain Bot to determine where the stronghold is. For this, you will need to measure the angle of an Eye of Ender, which basically means just the direction that it flies in, incredibly precisely. Once he exits the portal, he builds up. And then throws an Eye of Ender. Now he activates his zoom macro, which just zooms very far in, to measure the eye incredibly precisely. And with that precise angle and his current position, the Ninja Brain Bot can calculate the position of the stronghold. After he has precisely measured the eye, we can see that there is a 100% chance that it is 1030 blocks away at these nether coordinates. So he already knows this, and this is exactly what the 20 obsidian is used for. The first one was used to build the portal in the fortress, and the second one will be used to build another portal at the correct coordinates to immediately enter the stronghold. And just with this precise eye measuring script, speedrunners can find the stronghold in a matter of seconds. So basically the next part is he will be trying to get to these coordinates.
I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous.
Now here there's a couple of things I'd like to mention. As you already saw, we know the coordinates of the stronghold. He pearls over and finds the coordinates, which are right here. And then he digs down. But why does he dig down and not build the portal immediately? Well, simply put, if you dig down and build the portal, there will be a higher chance that you actually hit the stronghold directly. If your portal is higher up in the nether, chances are that you will spawn above the stronghold in the overworld. So you technically got the correct coordinates, but you will spawn above it instead of inside it. So basically that's why he digs down to about Y40 before building his portal. Now we're on the final stretch, and yet again the pie chart comes in handy. Similarly to the chest we located at the beginning, a spawner is also a block entity, which means we can use our trusty pie chart again to find where the spawner is. And inside the stronghold there is only one spawner, exactly where the end portal is. So this is the way that the speedrunners find the end portal very quickly. We look for the spawner through the wall. Let me demonstrate. This is where Infume spawns, and then he just keeps flashing his pie chart while having his screen a certain size to make it easier to find the portal room. Now if we go around here, we can see that the sector is very small, except for on the left side, where it's actually pretty big. So the general idea is where the sector is big is most likely where the spawner is. It is a bit more nuanced, since the stronghold will always have chests that corrupt your reading, but the general idea is where orange is large, the portal room will be. So that is exactly what we're going off right now. So he goes this way, rescans because he doesn't actually know which exact direction it is. And we can see over here it's small, but over here it gets larger. So it's this way probably, and over here it's small again. So what he checks first is this door, but it doesn't really seem any good. So instead we go over here, and we see the portal room through the door here. And that is how speedrunners find the portal room quickly. Basically, they just look for a large orange sector on their pie chart, and then just rescan if necessary. And that brings us to the end. Here is what happens in the end explained properly. Now, the end can spawn open, but it can also be buried. And we don't know how deep we are buried. For example, this could be any amount of blocks above us. And we want to get out as quickly as possible to kill the dragon. Now, how do we find out how deep inside the end stone we are? We use the F3 menu. On the F3 menu, there's a lot of information displayed. But what we really care about right now is this M value over here. This M value tells us the highest block at our current coordinate. And what I mean by that, if I fly directly upwards on my current coordinate and look down, that block will have Y level 58. So effectively, we know the last layer of endstone above us is Y58. Now we can use this to dig up faster. Right now we are at Y49. So this is Y49, Y50, Y51, Y52, Y53. So we pillar up until there's only one block remaining. Y54, Y55, Y56, Y57. Now we know there's only one block remaining above us, and now we can do a so-called pearl clip. This will save some time during the run to get to the dragon faster. For a pearl clip, we want to aim at about the corner of the block, and then hold shift, throw a pearl, and then unshift, which will allow us to clip through the end stone and get to the dragon quicker. Now the last part is the zero cycle. Once the end find starts, the dragon can cycle around either of 4 pillars, either one of these back 2 or one of the front 2 here. In this case, and in Infume's case, it decided to cycle around this front diagonal cage pillar. But it doesn't really matter, I'm not trying to teach you zero cycle right now. I have a zero cycle tutorial if you want to learn it though. But the basic point is, this green node here, or this green line, highlights a node. And a node is something that the dragon flies around for a bit before it goes somewhere else. And the basic idea of the zero cycle is, we want to build a setup on this node so we can place beds there and blow up the dragon while it's flying around it. This allows us to kill the dragon before it even has a chance to perch or fly off or lose us time. Yeah, that's the idea of the zero cycle. It's mechanically a lot more challenging, but it's generally a pretty simple concept. And with that, you should know everything you have to enjoy the rest of this speedrun. Just a tiny little note here. The bow can be used to slow down the dragon to blow up 2 beds simultaneously. And GG.
Oh my fucking god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.